try it again. Okay, we just hit the button. Hopefully it does not ping every single one of you that is in my Discord, because that would kind of piss me off. So that's why I set up roles for the stream notifications now. So even though I don't go live very often, the YouTube notifications still do at everyone. So um, it's still pinging anyone in there, but um, I'm gonna switch that over to the stream notify role as well. I just haven't done that yet. Let me see if this is actually showing up correctly now. If it is, great. Otherwise, okay. Yeah, it's it's kind of showing up now. I picked a random screenshot I took earlier of whatever I was doing. Um, I think I was working on a new uh, world space or country, region, whatever you want to call it, called Lamandris. It's a new area that I'm working on. Like the level. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I did get that in. I I'm still doing testing on it. Like I can kind of show some examples, but it's not they're not the thing I'm doing with this is I'm kind of slowly implementing it into story levels that I can thoroughly test. So I'm basically, in other words, I'm trying to do a full level with this system. Um, it works very well. I'm very happy with it. And the developer that helps me build it, if he's in here or if you stop in, Joel, thank you for that. He's super excellent, and he helped build this system out. Um, this is a level that I uploaded on my YouTube recently. It's kind of old. I didn't upload it recently, but um, I more or less made it public because it was a private video initially, that I had just for testing purposes. Um, but basically, like the whole system, the problem that I'm having with it is um, primarily keyboard and mouse input, and then kind of thinking like I had a couple individuals look at the system, also people that were involved in some of the development, and I had some really interesting recommendations or just thoughts to, I guess, to think about, right? Things to think about with the system. Let me, first of all, let me turn this down. um, the main thing that I'm trying to consider, and then I'm trying to figure out more or less, is just making sure the keyboard and mouse input is as good as the gamepad and controller mouse input for this sort of system. Um, the thing with these camera systems, and really this camera system in particular even, is that it's entirely meant to be played, I think, more with a controller than anything else, or any sort of gamepad. And that's why a lot of games back then, you had these on consoles, right? These were generally console games, that you did this sort of thing in. And the main reason for that is kind of just it's the main reason for that is it's just not and maybe it's just me being too nitpicky too. Like I could see some people enjoying this and going like, oh, it's no problem, like yeah, maybe this turn is a little bit weird, or the input's not 100% perfect. Like, you know, you can't do, like with gamepad, you have a joystick, right? You can't do like as smooth movements, right, as you could do with a controller or a gamepad. But I'm kind of trying to figure out ways around that. Also trying to think of things that I can do to just improve it. It is something I want to do, though. I mean, one of the main points, they currently, the ragdolls are weird. They just go all over the place. But one of the other main things that was kind of brought to my, yeah, see, that's a weird transition right there. Caused me to fall off. So, I mean, this is a test level. This isn't really like, this isn't a actual level, right? So there's things like this where I can just fall off and glitch into these little rocks over here, and nothing that's supposed to happen happens, or happens, whatever. Basically, one of the main concerns that I keep going away from this is that the main game won't necessarily have this camera view. You might have it in certain parts of the open world, but my whole idea with the structure of this game was that you'd have like linear story levels you go through that play with this camera system. This is the camera system you use in those levels, and this is how you kind of progress through those levels, right? And while they're more linear, yes, you know, you have your alternate routes, you know, it's not super strict, right? But it's still a linear story level that's meant to focus on the story. And so they would ideally use this camera system. And then outside of that, you have open worlds that are part of kind of the main RPG experience. And that side of things is where the camera system is no longer, you know, this isn't the camera system we're using a standard third-person camera system. So in other words, it's kind of a mix between those two things. And I've thought for a long time about how that would play into the game, and kind of just how I would make a progression loop that makes sense. Because the thing is, if you play these levels and you do really good with a skill, you level up, like, and this is something another developer or someone that was involved with, actually he was a composer and brought this up. And if you're in here, Lex, thank you for bringing this up. But this was something we discussed, and he had brought to my attention, is that, you know, if you have things like archery in here, you know, with this camera system, obviously you can't aim at something like this, right? It's going to be, if anything, it'd be kind of like an auto aim, sort of like locking system, right? The issue with that is, let me pause real quick. The issue with that is, you know, you do archery in here, maybe you level up some skills, and then you go into the open world. It's kind of like a little bit jarring, you know what I mean? It's almost like, okay, if I do some things in the story levels and I level up my archery skill, and I want to use archery primarily, or maybe that's something I want to do. It could be anything, really. And then you come into the open world and it's like, oh, now I can actually aim, I can do all sorts of different things. You're kind of brought with a different scope of what you can do. So really it's kind of figuring out how I'm going to blend that. And the archery thing is just one example. That's just one thing. There's I'm going to end up dying. Oh my god, yes. I just You know, okay. I might not fix the ragdolls for a while, because I actually like seeing myself fly off of the camera. But yeah, it's this level kind of demonstrates this camera system. Yeah, I appreciate that. I know you made that comment a moment ago. I just kept talking, but appreciate that. Yeah, but I mean, it blends well, and really the thing with this is the main thing that's going to make this work well is how we design the camera tracks. The camera operates on these tracks currently, and so um, it's kind of all how we do this, right? You know, a bad game that has this camera system will implement this sort of thing poorly. A good game that uses this camera system will implement these tracks, things of this nature, you know, sort of like how we have in this system, very well. And they'll execute that in ways very carefully. I can tell you immediately a poor implementation of the system is right here, where we go, um, kind of, we come off the bridge here and then we blend back this way a little bit. And you kind of saw that in the video as well that I put on my YouTube channel. And actually, the developer who helped me build this system had pointed that out initially, and I was like, yeah, I noticed, I noticed that was something where, this would be an example of something where I'd play the level and I'd go, oh, that needs to be, we need to adjust the camera settings here or the track to blend better with the transition, which would be from this track to this one, right? Um, so I mean, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. I really do want to use this system for the story, and then have just a standard open world, camera system for, third person camera system for the open world, and then do that. But there's a lot of things I just have to take into consideration, I think, before I make that commitment. Even though I have the system in place, it's just something I haven't quite sat down and gone through all my I guess my checklists yet with that. Um, so let's see. Initially, we had in here, I think. Yeah, initially we had a level um, that was supposed to be the introduction level, and I've since kind of scrapped that. I don't think we're gonna keep it. um, but we might if I return to this camera system, and kind of implementing it in this level again and kind of checking the things that I'm concerned about and going through the whole process. If I'm able to come up with solutions, I would kind of like to revisit this and just see if it would, see if it would make a good introduction level once I finish the thing, because we didn't have much. This is basically all we had was this kind of like dungeon style um environment, if you will. It's not anything great, super great, right? But we had about maybe like what, like 3-4 minutes of gameplay on here. So, and this was using the fixed camera system. The camera tracks are actually a separate level, I believe. I think that's. I might have just deleted them, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So it's primarily me, but I do from time to time. I work with other developers to develop systems for the game, um, or art assets, things like that. But it's primarily on kind of a to need to do basis, I guess, or need to have, I suppose. And occasionally I'll reach out to other developers or artists to do those things. But pretty much everything is, I would say, all my doing. One of the, I think one of the things, one of the main things, right, that would be something I had somebody else involved in working on was that camera system. That was probably the biggest thing that we did in the past, I would say even like a year, to be honest. it's just been a lot on my side now, trying to figure out how I want to implement it. I think I just loaded up the same level I did. Um, an old version of this. What is this? Oh, this was a copy of that prototype level that I did. Didn't know that I did that. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of more or less how that, what I mean by that. Whenever I mention we, let's see. Can't really find what I'm looking for. Let me just go back to the caverns level. My intention for the next dev stream, which I guess we could consider this sort of a dev stream. I'm not going to spend too long in here. Normally I'll run dev streams for about like, I don't know, like a couple hours or so, depending on what we're doing. But we'll do a couple things, and then I'll probably transition over to playing some games and Clone Hero and stuff. So I need to relax a little bit too. But but yeah, one of the main things I'm working on right now is this level. So this is something that I've been working on for about probably a couple months at this point, very slowly. And so this level was kind of going to be the new introduction level. So if I play that, I'm not going to play through the whole thing right this second, but once I finish it, I will. Absolutely. We'll do a whole stream where I play through it, but basically right now this is kind of just going to be, it's kind of a testing grounds for a new introduction level where it's not so in your face with the story, you know what I mean? Like it kind of shows you a little bit of the story. That's why I was going to do an introduction cinematic in the beginning, and then kind of just pick up here, essentially where you're kind of left in a more open-ended, I guess, area, and pretty much it kind of just acts as like your first dungeon, right? And that's what it is. So, and you're kind of meant to just go through this whole cave, this cave section, which I'm still working on pretty much every bit of this, but this is kind of what we have so far. The lighting's not complete. We still have some issues with that. Obviously, you can see some artifacting on a lot of things, actually. But it's getting there, very slowly. So, but yeah, this is pretty much it. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's a pretty big area. And then this is kind of where I'm at currently. So I need to basically build up, and this is kind of my idea, right, was to kind of build from here, from this entrance, and this is going to be all covered eventually, but it will kind of open up into a chasm here, which, I mean, it's kind of hard to envision, especially with this limited sort of view where everything's foggy, you can't really see. But it's gonna go up, and eventually, I don't really know how. I plan on kind of going all the way up here. Which is, it's gonna be, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we'll come up with shortcuts. You know, I'm thinking if I can't, if it's not fun to build all the way up there, if it's not fun to play, you know, I'm gonna find ways to cut it back, you know, maybe do like lifts and things like that, because I want this to be fun, you know, I want every bit of this to be fun. So far it is, I would say. It's not you know, collisions are a little janky here and there, but it's not, you know, it works. I just have to kind of develop like puzzles and stuff for opening doors and gates and stuff like that. Um, Originally, this was all open, but I decided to close that off to kind of have a little bit more direction. You know, you're kind of being told to go over here, but yeah. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I'm excited to use it in story levels because I think it's going to be something that's ultimately uh, pretty unique. I guess my main thing that I'm hoping for is that when I put it all together, um, that I can continue to evolve it to the point where it's something that, you know, nothing about it feels jarring, and that it's all, you know, you're playing through it and it feels smooth to go from, you know, a story level where you're in more of like a fixed camera view to something that's like, okay, I'm in the open world now. I have this, you know, I have a more open camera view, but I can now do different things. And maybe that's great. I don't know. It's kind of just figuring out how to combine the two, if that makes any sense. Not really combine the two, but to funnel them into the same core core gameplay progression, which it kind of have to in some ways. But I think if I can find ways of maybe taking some things from the story levels that are different and you know saying, hey, if you know you can still use like a bow in here, or coming up with a different system to where it's maybe similar to the open worlds, um, then maybe it would be good. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. All I'm saying is I'm trying to think about that. It's something that I was told that I didn't really think about initially, you know, until people started mentioning it to me, and I'm like, you know, that's a good point. Because I want, you know, when you go play these story levels, I want you to feel like I want the people playing it to feel um, like you're able to take a lot of those things into the open world, and that's kind of the challenge, I guess. Um, so we'll figure it out eventually, but I think um, that's part of like like more or less an innovative process, right? Where you're trying to think of new things to do that don't really exist currently. So it's kind of hard, but as soon as I figure it out, I'll keep rolling with it, keep progressing it, and see where it ends up. Let's see. Back to my content browser. So I was gonna work on this a little bit here. Um, just not too sure what I want to do with it yet. I have my let's see here. I have a kind of a mock-up layout image that I made a while back of how I wanted this to be, essentially. Trying to see if I can find it. Yeah, I think this is it here. So so basically, let me just do this. So essentially we're here right now. Um, but facing this way. So essentially what I want to do is I want to have this lead out into sort of an open chasm up here. So this is going to be, we'll probably extend like the roof area this way a little bit, like that, and kind of make it go up a little bit. But you'll be starting up all the way at the top here, and the idea is I want this to be, I guess eventually I want this to be just a massive cavern. So um, it's gonna kind of lead you all the way to the bottom here, and then from there you'll kind of work your way up again. Um, or you know, I might make it so you're not supposed to reach the bottom, and maybe if you fall, I don't know, it's kind of just you're done. You know, it could be more like Mines of Moria in that sense. But we have all of this area to work with. I'll switch to unlit's not really a good view either. There's really no good view for low poly. That's kind of the unfortunate thing because it's gonna, no matter what view I go into to look at this, unless it's wireframe, I'm not really gonna be able to see too much. Like if I go to wireframe, I can see a little bit. Maybe not, but maybe not here, but in some other cases, maybe. But it would kind of extend out this way, right? And then like the orc encampment probably be like somewhere over here. I don't know. I have no idea. The whole idea is I want it to kind of lead up to one of these. This is sort of a marker that I made for myself to know where to go. This is actually based off of like a real world location. So what I mean by that is if I go to the map where you'll come out of the cavern in, um, you're coming out of a real world location in that sense. You're coming out of that exact spot in that map. See if I can find it. Boss fight, maybe. There's got to be a boss fight in here somewhere. I've already made that a condition of what I'm making, so with this introduction level. Um, because yeah, I mean the whole thing is like I mean, with this game there's a very um I guess intertwined story with um I guess how deep it's involved in the game. Um it's there. It's just not, you know, this is the kind of game where the way I do it might be a little bit more casual, you know? It's not, you know, oh my mic was muted. I don't know how long it was muted. Okay. I don't know how long that was muted. I have a button on my mouse to press or when I want to mute my mic. I don't know why. I had set it on there for okay. I had set it on there for when I'm playing Clone Hero because my mic is honestly just kind of ass, and whenever I play Clone Hero, the sound comes through my mic. Anyways, long story short, what I was kind of saying is I was kind of talking about how involved the story aspect is of the game too, and kind of talking about how you know this open-ended aspect was kind of made, um, or what I'm doing here with this cavern level, anyways, is kind of meant to be more of an open-ended aspect or open-ended design, more or less, where it doesn't have to be as linear, if that makes any sense. Like yes, the story's there, but it's like it's not like in your face. You know what I mean? It's there if you want to look for it or if you want to be involved in it, you can. Um, but otherwise, it's kind of just meant to introduce you to the game. It's meant to be kind of like your first dungeon, like I said. And I don't know. I'll be testing whether or not it's a good thing once I get people involved to actually just play through it and test it out and let me know what they think. And at that point, I might have two different introduction levels. One that's more like a, you know, maybe that's more involved with the story, and then this one, and then see what maybe is more preferable. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but in any case, this is kind of meant to be more of like a, you know, um, not so much a one of the story levels where it'd be focused with the camera system and all that. This doesn't even have that implemented in it. But just an introductory dungeon, right? Um, so yeah, that's kind of more or less what I'm aiming for with that. Um, and then the idea is you come out of it about right here. So this is that marker that I have in the same map, and you'd come out at this location, and this is what you'd be kind of introduced to. It's not perfect yet, but um, it'll kind of be the first world space you'll be in. So, um, yeah. Yeah, that way it's not like because the thing is I had that kind of what's that one level that I was showing? The Agden Valley Fortress, which was that one level that I was showing with I'll just go to it again real quick. Um this one here, which was kind of the initial. I don't know if this is actually the right one or not. We'll find out. Um it was the initial idea for the story level. The first I guess the first part of the game that you end up in after the intro. And yeah, this is not it. This is not it. This is actually a separate thing that I did. So there was a lot of different ideas, I will just say, for this. I know I'm going to have a lot of fun making like extra content once I get around to it and I release the game. I don't know when, but once I do, there'll be so many other things because this was actually another first concept. One could say I'm a bit all over the place, but I kind of just like to try different things, and this was one of the first things that we tried. Um, was this? But anyways, this isn't the level. The one that I was looking for was this one here. Yeah, yeah. I do use it sometimes. I don't use it often, as often as I should. It's because I'm so used to having another content browser open that I just go right in here usually. And what I'll do is sometimes like when I have my content browsers, the way I'll do it is I'll have one on a second monitor. I might have one on a third. If I'm using a third monitor, I don't always use a third monitor, but when I do, I'll have another one with assets or something on it so I can do level design easy. Um, but then I have my main one is usually in my maps folder, which is typically here. This has all the different countries and what I like to call world spaces as a part of the game. The main game worlds are all in here. Oh, I hit the button again. I hit the button again. All right, let me take that off while I'm thinking about it, because that's causing us some issues. It's so easy for me to hit that too, because it's on my mouse. So okay, if I hit the side of my mouse at any point, it'll mute my mic, which is
Thank you.
it's convenient in a sense where if I want to mute my mic, it's great. Otherwise, when I'm just talking and I'm my autistic ass is constantly. Oh, I pressed it again. How is that even possible? I took it off. I took it off and it still did it. I don't know. It just wants my mic to be muted. Okay, now we're good. We're good now. Okay. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Appreciate that. Um, anyways, I'll say it one more time, right? Okay, we're good. Now, let me open up my OBS and just make sure my mic's not muted at any point. Basically what I was saying is, so this is where we're at currently with my introduction level or prologue level concept. And then I was basically just kind of going over this and saying this is kind of how it started, right? This is the level that I'm in currently. Um, and how that, it was nice, but it just it didn't really meet what I wanted for standards. So hopefully this cavern level, this one here, the more open-ended one, which is also shown the layouts on the side here, I still have pinned, is gonna work out much better. So yeah, sure thing. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. Yeah, Christian, man, it was great to have you in here. I wasn't planning on doing this stream, but I decided I gotta ease back into this, man. I want to do more of these. I really do, because it's something that kind of also helps me. It, it helps me talk through things that I'm thinking about too. Where normally I'd be sitting here talking to myself, going, "Okay, yeah, we'll do this section. This is going pretty good. We'll do some gameplay tests. Typically I play my game a lot as I'm doing each section, so I'll stop and play through each one, and then I'll go up to a point. I'll go, oh yeah, this is great. Let me go back to the planning board and we'll do some stuff there, and that's where I do a lot of things in the Obsidian board. So yeah, it's a process, and I definitely will. And I'm also planning on doing it on both YouTube and Twitch for those of you who maybe don't like Twitch ads so much. I don't know how much the ads are going on here. I'll have to look at my setting. I've had a few people complain about it. I don't blame them. Twitch ads are a pain, and I have not touched any of my settings. So if you're getting a lot of ads, maybe the YouTube might be good too. I don't know. I don't get as much ads on YouTube as I do Twitch, so I know that. no matter who I'm watching. But I don't know, could just be me. But I've wanted to stream on Kick as well, but it's great. I like what they're doing. It's just not the audience there is not. I don't think it's quite where I would feel comfortable streaming on there, um, as dedicated as I would here or YouTube. Even though I'm not super dedicated even on these two platforms as of current. Um, I don't think I'd be. I'm not quite happy with where it's at. So we'll see if it grows over the years. But um, yeah, I miss doing these because back then we had a category for real. I mentioned this a couple times too. Um, and a lot of the Unreal Engine streamers would be able to talk with each other that way, and it was the community was a lot closer knit. I felt like back then than it is now. We do have software and game development in Twitch now, but it's not the same. You have some people doing literally, software level stuff on here, and it has nothing to do with games or entertainment media or anything really creative, more or less. It's more, again, software engineering side, and that's great. But I like having I'd much rather have a more refined category where it's dependent on that what aspect of software or development that you're actually doing. You know what I mean? Which how is that possible? How? That's not possible. That's not possible. Wait a minute. No way. Dude. I got a fucking ghost on my stream. I'm sorry. What did I do here? Uh, okay. Let me make sure this is not able to be pressed this time because I took it off and somehow. Okay, it's good now. I'm spamming the button and it's not doing anything. Okay. Oh my god. If it was like three times, it'd be different, or maybe even two times. But no, for me, it was like about like 4 or 5 times that I did the same exact thing, and yeah, yeah, dude. Um, wow. Okay. Well, I've learned my lesson. I'm not doing that anymore. Anyways, I was just talking about the categories on Twitch and how I miss um having the Unreal Engine category, basically. So I don't know how I'm gonna do this roof yet. I haven't really decided. I've kind of just been using like I have like a set of rock assets that I use with a triplanar material on them, and that's what makes up a lot of this roof. The like the skylight stuff. This is kind of temporary, but for now I have just an emissive plane mat basically over these sections that signify that there's a light source there. Currently, again, this is not permanent, but we'll have like a actual sky sphere, uh, most likely in those instances that are obviously much larger too. They're quite prevalent throughout each section of the cave, but um, this part's going to be a little bit more challenging because I have basically here, I have a more open section, so I got to figure out first of all, um, do I want this to come up to, like, do I want to have like a section maybe that, I don't know, see if we can find something here, like a section that comes up to about this level out here, or do I want to just have it drop down? It's kind of the question right now. I'll tell you, originally the plan for this was not, and this was before. This is when I initially did this design layout here, which is not really much of a design layout, anyways. It's kind of just a rough draft of how I wanted things to be laid out, like points of interest, more or less. But the original intent was actually not to even have this much verticality. I can't even say the word in the first place. It was kind of meant to all be sort of at this level, right? But that's changed a lot. So so now we're kind of all the way up here. But and we're kind of working our way up, basically. But, yeah. So first step is figuring out how high we want to go, and then also um, the height of where we want this section to come out at. Because I'm doing like baked stationary lighting with this, it's going to be a little bit hard to, uh, I guess, to actually test all this lighting on stream. So for now, I'm kind of just going to do sort of placeholders more or less. By placeholders, I mean I'm going to drag out the lights and put them in positions relative to where I would want them, but I'm probably going to make a lot of tweaks later. So bear with me for a moment. We still have a lot of artifacting with these meshes, so which is a part of me not having finished the stationary lighting. So give me 1 second here. Check something on my phone real quick. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do out here yet. I haven't even really sat down and thought about it. My initial thought coming on live was actually that I wouldn't have figured it out. I actually didn't want to figure it out before I started the stream. I wanted to kind of do that process while I was live, just to kind of record how it went. But sometimes it does take me a little bit to think about these things. So if I don't exactly know, I'll start to kind of just maybe put larger rock meshes together like this. Not really refine any detail or anything like that. And then once I start to have something going, I'll start to kind of think in my head of how I want it to go. This is kind of similar to if I'm doing actual blockout designs, whereas in this project, I'm not really doing that, more or less just keep bashing rock assets and making a cave that way, since I already have a pretty good structure for how I want this to look generally. So the way I've been doing this is, yeah, I've been kind of doing just larger repetitive rock structures like this on the outside, and then as I get, as I do more with each section of the cave. So like each room, for example, or each area. I do like an inner layer, right? And that's kind of what I've been doing in all these instances. So um, yeah, and that's how we started out here. So I knew what I wanted, and that's kind of, you know, this is the first thing that I had actually. This was the screenshot that I took before I did all this, right? And this was before I had any of this section here. This part here, I'm trying to look. Yeah. This was where I knew I wanted to have a river section, so that was one of the first things that defined this area. And I knew I would have something flowing down here. I also knew that from this starting area that I would have a waterfall coming down here and another river section flowing into this. And then I slowly started to think, okay, you know, with each of my design sections, how are they leading up to one another? Well, this one's kind of funneling a river or something through a sewer gate in this instance into this area here, which I knew was going to be a lake. So I was like, there's got to be something in the lake, right? Came up with this uncharted ass looking thing up here. So, yeah, I mean, just things like that, right? And so in this instance, you know, what I'm thinking is like, well, I'll kind of skip this, but this is pretty cool. In this instance, I'm kind of thinking like, you know, here is there going to be like a bridge maybe, or like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to see with shitty lighting without building anything, which I'm not going to do live, by the way. But I kind of would maybe think to make things easier for now, I'd like to kind of build like almost like elevated rock sections where okay, I'm just gonna do this very briefly. Um, like this. This is not gonna stay. But like elevated sections like this where I have like parts of the landscape elevated too, maybe, to suit this. Because it kind of I like blending the landscape with the rock structures that I'm making here because I don't know, it's just a little bit smoother that way. It's also easier to handle collision because you're not really worrying too much on about static meshes as you are just kind of a general structure for a floor with what you get with the landscape. And so kind of elevating that over here and then just doing like individual rock islands, more or less, connecting to one another and then building up and then going all the way up here somehow. So that's my very rough, unguided, absolutely not thought out plan for this section. So we'll see. I'm not sure what I'm going to do though. You know, I'd like to get some inspiration from like the Mines of Moria and all that stuff, you know. So we have such an opportunity to do something cool here, but I also want it to feature each of these points of interest over here in a way that's not, you know, that's not boring, right? More or less. I don't want it to be just one. If I'm going to do like rock islands, as I'm referring to them as, I don't want it to be just going from one to the other fighting enemies. You know what I mean? It's not. This isn't that kind of level structure. It's meant to be very interesting, and so I can kind of refer back to also if I'm going to think about things that are interesting, back to actually tying in some of my lore. So for this whole section, basically what this is meant to be, this kind of started out over here once I did the ship section. And I'm going to add more to this that represents this, but essentially this whole location underground is meant to be sort of like a lost elvish citadel or city or whatever, you know. Um, more of an outpost maybe. I don't know. I don't know what you would really refer to it as, like a technical term that would be more fitting. Um, but yeah, I mean that's kind of what it was meant to be, and so it's kind of buried underground, and this is why, you know, you have like this tower over here, you have a statue of an elf over there. and things like that, right? And I really want to represent that, especially in this next section. I want there to be like huge statues of eventually of the elvish characters. I'm gonna model the rest of these. Like I'll do actual custom designs for these characters. This is more just a generic elf base that I put on here that I created and then or that I modeled in Blender and then I put some assets on that for a hair piece and stuff. Um, but I want that to tie in here too, right? And that's kind of the point. So we might do like more like city-like structures too, like this, you know, or these. But we'll see. Um, and you know, it'd kind of be cool if like each section too was like a different part of that citadel, um, like a market area or you know, because you could kind of imagine like even if something was buried after I don't know thousands of years, whatever I have written on there in the lore, and you know I don't remember exactly because I wrote it a couple months ago at this point. You know, you'd have maybe it was in like a valley. Maybe this used to be like instead of inside of a mountain, maybe it used to be on a mountain. I don't know. Not like that's I don't know. You know, geography is completely fantasized here. So we're doing whatever we want, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Um, but anyways, maybe it was like a valley, and so like each section, or not a valley, but like a mountain sort of thing, where you have each section that kind of leads up vertically like that. I don't know. I'm just thinking in my head right now. I'm trying to come up with things. I don't know, dude. It's gonna be hard to like actually test lighting though. If I'm gonna do this whole fake lighting thing, it's gonna be yeah, it's gonna be hard. I don't really care too much about the lighting yet. That's the thing. With this, I'm kind of more focusing on the design at this current time. It's gonna be really tricky to do this in a way where uh, I'm gonna do multiple light passes with this for sure. What this whole section, I think, what I'm gonna do with lighting is I'm gonna do each step separately because I want to kind of go through each section and make sure it's at a point where I want it before I move on to the other for any sort of lighting because I know I'm gonna spend a bit of time there. So with that in mind, yeah, we'll focus more on like the design. I do want to be able to kind of see what I'm doing, but again, just starting with like just very large, repetitive structures like this, and then building on top of them is kind of what I've been doing. So, or what I plan on doing for this section, anyways, right? So it's a lot of just copying, pasting, and then eventually refining a structure. And if you really wanted to, you could sit down and block out something like this. And that's like, you know, if I was working with a team, I absolutely would. But in my case, I'm working with what's easiest for me. And also what saves me the most time in the process. So, like by doing this, and this is kind of what I mean, like by kind of having a generalized, I keep saying the word repetitive, but it really is just if you're just copying and pasting large assets like this, like rocks, you know, you're going to get a repetitive structure. The idea is kind of forming something like that first, and then deciding, okay, how does this look? How do I want this to be formed? It's kind of a interesting way of, of building a cave, but it, it works for me, so that's how I've been doing it. And then I also have concepts that I go off of with some of these, but Here, I want to kind of see what I can come up with first, based off of what I'm thinking, and go from there. I wish I had some of my old levels that I did that were like supposed to be inspired by Mines of Moria. That I wonder if I still have them. they, the one that I did, I know I did one that was literally called Mines of Moria, and it was for, um, I did a fan project for Lord of the Rings, and it was like a low poly conquest style thing. I had all my own characters in it and everything, and I did a Mines of Moria map for that. Yes, I do have it in here. I don't know if it's the same one. Let's see. It has none of the lighting in it. Okay. What about this one? No. It has lighting, it's just not, I must have had like auto exposure on or something. I don't know. Anyways, oh well. It was kind of my first, I guess, large like, chasm like area, or indoor chasm that I created. And by chasm, I mean anything that's remotely similar to what I'm trying to do here. Which is, I mean, the player scale, right? I mean, I can just drag something in one of these guys. It's pretty large, so it's definitely going to be. So definitely something to consider as I'm doing each of these sections. And if I'm going to do bridge sections, how long do we want them to be? You know, if I might, even if I did one here, you know, if I did, let's see here, if I type in bridge, I'm looking for a specific asset in here. Actually, let me just copy this one over here. I liked this bridge that we used, for example, or yeah, let's copy this one. I don't really care which right now. I'm kind of just trying to show, or not just show, but get an idea of how I would want this. It's like even if I did like a bridge like that, we'd still want it to be like a standard size that we have relative to the rest of our map. Depending on what I'm using, these assets, like this one here is, I think these are part of a low poly environment pack that I had purchased from Unity that was, I kind of customized some of it a little bit to be a little bit more low poly, I guess, or at least in a different way. But anyways, this is one of these, a bridge from that pack, and this, you know, if I was to use something like this, you know, I'm kind of just trying to keep in mind how I'm wanting this to be. You know, initially I was thinking to like, do I want it to be like rugged or like, I guess more primal, like where there's like wooden bridges and like obviously goblin camps and stuff like that would be a thing regardless. I'll probably do some in a couple areas here. But would I want it to be primarily wooden bridges or, you know, some of the city bridges from, you know, it being buried in the past since it's kind of a part of this whole thing. You are literally in that citadel as you're kind of going through this cave. That's, you know, whatever remains of it is what you're going through. Um, it's just there's not too much of it yet. You know, this is kind of all we have of that, and then the ship, and so on and so forth. But you know, eventually it'll be a lot more. And so I'm kind of thinking in my head too is, or what I'm kind of thinking in my head as well is, do I want like the structures in here to still be a lot of like stone structures and things like this, like a stone bridge, for example. Um, and have that connected to, I guess, ruins and stuff like that? Or do I want, you know, again, like wooden bridges and things of that nature? Um, my mind is kind of leaning more towards having more of like the ruin structures and more of like the stone bridges and stuff like that. Even if we end up, if I end up taking this in a blender and then making a more ruined version of it or something like that, that would be cool too. Um, we could absolutely do that, but my mind is kind of thinking that, and then kind of doing a mix of maybe some wooden bridges here and there, maybe leading up to some of the goblin area or goblin camps, and maybe being closer to those than anything else. I mean, this is quite a large area we have to work with, so you know, we have plenty of room to do all those things. So, um, and even if, you know, even if I do shorten this whole dungeon and I make it so it's not okay, you have to go through the whole thing, you know, it's like, you know, if at any point it becomes, oh, it's not, you know, this is fun, but it's just too, like, it's too lengthy, you know, there's too much in here, then I might kind of revise how I treat different sections, and I might just leave them open for maybe if you want to return, you know, like optional areas. Um, and that would be fine in that case. We have the flexibility to do that with this level structure, which is good. So if I want to make more open-ended aspects in that regard to where, you know, we want to have a lot of optional areas or just places where, you know, maybe like in this far corner over here, I'll level this out, but maybe in this far corner, it's kind of optional. You can maybe skip past it and go to the next section over here, which is, I don't even have it, so it's kind of hard to visualize. um, then, you know, maybe we could do that. So I kind of like to just go top down for a minute and uh, maybe just do a little bit of planning here. So it's kind of hard for me.
Thank you.
Views. Let me go. Wireframe's not going to be too much better, but we'll we'll work with it. Actually, let me just switch to unlit. Unlit's better. Unlit's better with low poly, so I don't know. It is what it is. We're about right here. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Unfortunately, I don't have a notification that pops up the name. And my Google window over there is very small, so I can't read the name. But thank you so much. Appreciate it. Oh yeah. Okay, so switch to top down. So I'm gonna want to go. Could have two windows open and save me a lot of time going back and forth. I know, but again, Captain Autism over here wants to do things the hard way, so we'll do it the hard way. So I'm gonna just take a screenshot of this, even though it's, I don't, you know, what I'm looking at is like, okay, you know, what does this really tell me? Not much is the answer. But oh my God, no, 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 stop it, stop it. Back it up. Let me delete this. I do that sometimes. I click on. Okay, so like. Let me actually do this. Let me do this. I'm gonna make. I'm gonna put like some like cubes or something over here. So maybe like this. 12, though. We're gonna need a lot more than that, like 50. 50, 100 maybe? Oh, no. um, these are not going to be perfect, but just to give me some idea generally of how I'd want larger, I guess, rock islands to be. And this is kind of like the idea that I had. So, I mean, ideally, I'd like each of them to go up incrementally. Um, in what increments, it's kind of hard to tell at this scale because until I get closer and I'm able to build those things out, the ways of getting to them, I don't really have a definitive answer as to how that should be. Um, that's something that I'll have to figure out. Um, but with that aside, so if I just do these like this, I don't know, just relative to how I'd want them, maybe. I think that was kind of what I was trying to do here initially. Well, my first thought was I was going to have everything on the ground level, actually. And instead of these being more rock islands like these over here, I was thinking of them more as kind of like rock walls. So, in other words, your pathways would be like, you know, think of this all on the first floor. You'd come out here, and then they'd be more like just rock walls that you're going along, and then your pathways are here. But now that we're building so vertically, this is different. So these could be more like the rock islands, right? That I've been talking about. So maybe the first one's, this one right over here. Um, and it's kind of leading directly from here. We go here, and then here somewhere in the corner. And then maybe I'm gonna go right across because that's boring as shit. So we might want to do something like this where we're going kind of like here, 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 like kind of back and forth. I don't know. Something like that. Um, at this point, I mean, we don't have to make everything. I guess it doesn't have to be like incrementally higher, technically. Um, I kind of like it to be though, because then that way it's kind of building you up and it's kind of telling you, okay, I am actually progressively getting higher and I can see it. Don't take that out of context, please. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Um, then I don't know, like maybe over here, maybe. I don't know. Let's do it that way. You remembered my hero name? Hero name? What is that? What's that mean? Um, okay. I would say honestly, like a goal would maybe even be building up to this one. And then at this point I could do creative, quote unquote creative things by like doing like lifts or something like that to just bring you up at this point. But really the main deciding factor there is going to be, okay, once I get to this point up here, um, is it fun to play a little bit more? Can we do more with this level, or is it just too much? That's kind of what we'll decide. Let's do this, and then make this actor hidden in game. Okay. So now if we go top down, And okay, this is so we have some ideas. So what I want to actually do, now that I'm looking at this from a top-down perspective, is I might even want to do this. That. Again, just very loose ideas here. You said this. You saw this 10 minutes. Yeah, I know. I'm not very good at reading my chat today. So, um, sorry, sorry, not sorry. Um, we are gonna play some Clone Hero in a little bit here. I just want to kind of get some structure of this going. Um, just give me 1 second, real quick. I just noticed that still says thought we was gonna play the other game, Paint Row. Paint Row. What's Paint Row? What is that? Sounds like a interesting game. Paint Row. Hmm. Saints Grow. That's what is that, like a weed simulator? It should have made like a spin-off, like yeah, like a spin-off Saints Row game instead of that shitty one they made and did like a I don't know. They could have done something with that. That's all I'm saying. Um but no, they killed the franchise completely instead, so we got what we got, man. But yeah, I mean, if you want to play it later, we can play it later maybe. I don't know. I am not 100% sure yet. Depends on how late I stay up. So let's take this screenshot again. I don't know why this is still showing up. All right. So I don't really need to do anything with this image yet, but as I kind of work my way up each location, the way that I'm kind of structuring this, then I'll mark it off. I'll do some markups on it. Um, but yeah, really, it's kind of just what I'm trying to do right now is I'm kind of trying to figure out where my I guess my main areas are here that I want to make. Um, the the thing about this is right is this is obviously going to be a much different style, I guess level structure than anything that we have in this level currently. leading up all the way from, from here, going through this section, and then, so on. Right. Which, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it'll kind of be interesting depending on how how I connect each area, but it's basically like having sections like this, except they're all, suspended vertically, pretty much. We're connecting them. So, anyways, um, damn it, let me try to put my thinking brain uh, in order. Thinking brain. What the fuck does that mean? So I'll switch to unlit mode again so I can kind of see what I'm doing. So again, like with what I'm doing here, I'm kind of just doing a general repetitive rock structure. And then once I have something, I'll be able to add detail. I do want to do something with the lighting in here. It's just so hard for me to do this right now because I'm not baking anything right now. If I had my swarm farm up, I probably would, but I don't. So that's cool. So for now, we're just doing shitty lighting practices until I refine it. We'll just steal this over here. Do something like that. Maybe. Does not have to be perfect. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot to work with here. It'd be hard. Um, what's that? Bear with me for a moment. Okay. And it'd be cool if, like, as you're kind of coming out here, you can kind of see a little bit of what's going on all the way back there too. So I definitely want to keep this open as I'm doing this. Even if I do have like ruin structures in between like each section, kind of like how I talked about, like over here, or other kind of natural barriers like rocks, rock formations, whatever. I still want it to be as open as I can have it, just so that as you're kind of going through, you know, whether you're passing over a bridge or using something else to get to the next area or next rock. Keep calling them islands. I guess it's the best term. Then you're still able to see stuff off in the distance, and I think that's part of what I want to keep here for sure. I don't know, Mulgi, you still in here, man? You got any ideas? Because if any of y'all got any ideas, I want to hear. I'm just this is as impromptu as you can get. I'm not really basing off of anything in particular. I'm just doing, man. I'm just doing. Impromptu level design, right? Or cave design. It's such a beautiful thing, and I wish people weren't as afraid to explore. But we're all afraid of doing that these days in some way. I get it. It's not typical. Say that. But it also takes a lot of having absorbed pop culture and just all sorts of books and inspirations and stuff over the years to even think of anything remotely worth creating. So gotta have some sort of inspiration, right? Otherwise, you don't really have anything you're able to base off of.
Thank you.
Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. No, I'm not reading the names, but thank you. Like I said earlier, my Google window is super small, so I have like my eyesight is terrible. I can't read. I can't read it. I can kind of read the chat though, so if anybody types anything in there, I might be able to read that. There's a small chance. Not guaranteed. Hey, what's up? Nice to have you on here. Yeah, so I'm just working on my my main game project, I guess. Working on a cave level, sort of doing what I just referred to as impromptu level design. So we're not really planning it out too much as we are kind of just going with a loose, I guess sort of like we're not doing any blockouts or anything like that or any sort of gray boxing, but I'm kind of just going off of loose design plans and seeing what I can come up with. But basically this is everything we have so far. So this is over the course of like, I don't know, a couple months maybe. And so I've ran through this a couple times on the stream, but this is pretty much what we have. And once we're done, we'll do a whole playtest stream of everything. I just really want to be able to do it from start to finish when I do that. So for now, our focus has kind of just been to come up with what we're doing with this very large and daunting chasm section that I don't really want to work because it's a lot, but basically let's switch to, it's easier to see an unlit view, different view modes that I can switch to be able to see things easier. But basically what I was doing just like a couple was it like 20 minutes ago, I started coming up with how I want these kind of rock islands to be, and this is going to be kind of leading up to the top, which is where you'll exit. And then when you exit the cave, you'll come out to, let me just go to that level real quick again. I want to play it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to put something out. I really want to um I really want to be able to have kind of a solid prototype before I do any more public testing. But once I do, I'll probably start putting it out on platforms like Steam to start with, and then, moving up from there, we'll see. Um, but I've spent, the past like 2 or 3 years kind of getting the experience that I needed to be able to release things on Steam. Um, and so, you know, fast forward to today, I'm kind of going through the full process in a way where, it's comfortable, and it's something that well, I wouldn't say comfortable, but something that it's more of a refined process for me where I kind of know what I'm doing. In a sense where I say what I know what I'm doing loosely, but it- it's more I'm able to kind of see the bigger picture now, you know what I mean? So, but basically you'll exit the cave here. This little marker is kind of where you'll come out. Um, and that's going to be kind of the introduction to the game. A lot of time. A lot of time. My game has a very unique, I would say a very unique style. From the people that I've showed it to, they've all kind of had the same remarks. Some people that really like, you got gamers who really like just realistic graphics, and that's fine. That's not what this game is at all. Obviously, it's more of a, if I were to describe it, the style is more of like a stylized mix with a low poly, low poly art style. The low poly is kind of like this more triangulated stuff that you see, and that's, you know, it's a mix of both. So, um, and I kind of came up with this style. Um, some have described it as kind of more like impressionistic, and that's, I guess, would be a good way to describe it because you have like the stylized aspect, which is like the foliage and the grass, I guess, some of the rocks and stuff of that nature. And then you have like the more, obviously, the more triangulated stuff, maybe more like props, structures, might be rocks, characters, and things like that. So, but it all just kind of blends together. So, in a way where, I've spent a lot of time working on this and I'm still working on it, but it's slowly getting to where I want it to be. You know, minus like the background, I'm not really too happy with in some of these worlds, but it's more like the background mountains and stuff like that. They're just there to, like they're not all fully detailed. You know what I mean? So it's more to just kind of have something there currently. Um, but I'm kind of getting a little distracted, but I will do a couple other things since I'm doing it anyways. Um, but this is one of my largest world spaces, and I show this every time that I'm kind of going through levels like this on a stream. I've shown it multiple times on different live streams, but this is by far the largest one that we have in the game currently. There is about there's I think like 53 or 4 at this point, so it's a little bit like, like, are you insane kind of thing, but it's again, this is kind of a passion project, so I've been kind of just having fun with it, and that's where we are. So um and that's like, I don't normally even run through this, but I do have like a design document that has all this stuff on here as well. So like each of my world spaces that I create, I just basically list them in here and then I write descriptions. Um, and this is kind of a, I guess, a more generalized way of viewing that. And then tying it into the story and everything that I've written. Um, these like little descriptions here, these are mostly like geographical explanations and also like, okay, um, how much civilization is in there, like a show. Yeah, really, really. Um, but yeah, I just kind of write these in here to help me with locations and establishing locations. So that's kind of how I've been doing that. Um, and then the one we're working on now is actually Lemandris, which is this one here, which we don't have an image yet, but I'll go to it at the end of the stream or in a little bit here. And that's currently a work in progress as well. Do the same thing for films. Yeah, yeah. It's like I can't even stress, like I've been working on this for at this point for years. Um and the amount of times I've gone through both changes in structure and also like just changing like the whole story throughout my document. Like I did a massive story change the beginning of this year. And it was thanks to introducing some new people to the project, which they're no longer really involved at the moment. But I had a composer join, and he helped me also flesh out some of the story in some aspects, and I ended up rewriting a lot of it. So I came up with like I guess I won't go to it now, but I came up with a lot of things that um I didn't think about, and that I didn't tie in yet. I didn't have really like I had it, everything was there, it just wasn't connected, It wasn't connected in a way uh that brought it all together. And now it kind of is. It's just now it's being just I guess expanded from the current point in time, which is what, the game takes place in, right? Um so yeah, if I load these up, this is a huge level, so why it takes a minute to load everything. But this is the Marlins, and that's kind of the uh central, or not central area, but one of the main, I guess, first worlds that you'll go to. Um this map is kind of blurry because the image that I took. I'll go into the actual world map in a minute, but it's about right here. So on this continent map. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a rocky road so far, but you know, I just slowly keep working at it, and I think we'll get there eventually. There's a lot of doubts, a lot of a lot of wondering why I still work on this sometimes, but sometimes, but I think eventually, once I can kind of come full circle with the story, I can implement all the story levels that I want for the main game to make it kind of, a complete game, right? Then once I'm able to come full circle with that, I'll feel I'll feel like I'm able to start sharing it and then see how people take it and you know, go from there. Um, and if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that you're gonna have your group of people that really really like the game. You're gonna have your group of people that think it's okay. I think it's meh, you know. And then you're gonna have the group of people that are like, this is just not good. I don't like what you do, and that's fine. I get it. My first group of testers that I had for I had a beta that I had released like a year ago, 2 years ago at this point actually. It's quite a while ago. Um, that a streamer showcased in his stream, and they played through it, and it was messy, and the thing is, I had rushed it. It was the holidays, and I wanted to get something out. And I was like, oh, I can get this out. It's good, I think it's great, and it wasn't, it needed some fine tuning, and so people went in it and they were all confused. They didn't know if it was a complete game, because at that point I didn't even have like, okay, this is a beta or anything. I just kind of put it out on a platform and let people download it for free and test it out, and yeah, it's all about expectations too. So like with what I'm doing here, even though I am making very large open worlds and I'm doing all these crazy ambitious cool things, it's great. um, but I am keeping myself, um, more and more as I go through it. I'm keeping myself, not restrained would be the word. I don't think that would be the word, but kind of more like guided, if that makes any sense. So I'm kind of following what's logical, at this point. Um, for a long time, I wanted to combine all these worlds into one big world and do all this crazy stuff. And, some things are meant to be that way, sure, but in this game, we're doing it a little bit different, and I think it's all for the right reasons. Um, and so instead, we're kind of having like each world section is like a world space that's divided up into you know different countries or regions that you can explore. And they're pretty big, like this one, as I said, is one of the biggest ones that we have, but there's a lot in it. I'm kind of just zooming around in camera view right now, so I'm not actually playing through it. Um, so otherwise it would take me forever. But yeah, I mean it's a lot. And it's definitely not perfect, but this is kind of just years of coming on and off and working on this world space, to add things to it, and yeah, this is where we're at. But, and when I'm toggling game view like this, it's kind of just toggling, like all the spawn locations and all the game entities that we have placed. So there's quite a bit here. I've gone back and forth with the process with the maps. Now, I know you're getting tired of seeing this map, Luke, but I'm gonna show it every stream. I'll go back to the cave. I'll go back to the cave now if that makes you happy. Yeah. Anyways. Oh, you mean with that whole project? Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I have some stuff to share on that. Um, thanks for reminding me. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. So we have gone back and forth with that a lot. That whole idea of how we were dividing the maps. Um, and Marin, type in Marshall cameras is what I meant to type in. Um, yeah, so basically, like we've gone back and forth with the game design concept of having one large map and then having multiple maps like we have now, or multiple regions. And by multiple regions, I mean like these, right? So you're kind of going back and forth, back between different, not back and forth between different worlds, but, um, different regions and areas like this on your map that you travel to. And each is kind of their own distinct region. And yeah, there's a lot of them, but this is kind of how we have it currently. And then, like Luke was saying, we had plans to go, you know, make a large open world multiple times. There was multiple tests where we wanted to do that. So like, yeah, and I even put it in the board here, but there was basically just ideas that I had that I wanted to do, and I tested them out and figured out what worked and what didn't, and what was best. And at one point, we had managed to get everything in here. It was a very long project, and these are some of the. It's kind of hard to see, but some of the images that we took, um, and that ended up not working out as well as I planned. So we ended up just not doing that. Um, but I will say I don't regret doing any of it because part of the main thing of game design in general is trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't. Um, Even if you're doing that same thing multiple times, you're coming at it as long as you're coming at it with a different approach each time, and you're not you're not going at it with the same approach saying, hey, I'm going to do things this way. This one time it doesn't work out, let me wait a little bit and then I'm going to do it the same way later down the road. And no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you come at something like that with a different solution each time, then I think it's really good to do. If you think it's worth it, um, you give it a shot and you see if it's worth it. And if it turns out to be something that doesn't work out, then to me, if I've learned something from that process, it's absolutely still worth it. Because I'm able to kind of take away, notes like this, right? And I even did like audio logs in here too. I'm not going to play them, but I did some audio logs of what I was basically what I had come up with, right? So, but yeah, and as disappointing as it was each time that I failed with that, I don't know, it was still fun. It was fun to do, and it was fun to learn from it. So, I'm glad I did them, you know. But yeah. Yeah, again, I'm kind of just trying to come up with basic structures for this cave because I'm still not sure how I want to do this yet. And in about 30 minutes here, we'll switch over to Clone Hero for a little bit, probably. I don't know. Play a little bit of that, and then yeah. So before I continue with this or doing anything else with this section here that I'm working on, um, I wanted to kind of go to the one area that I just introduced to this, and that's let's see, that is Lamandris and uh, its neighboring area. Let's see, just here, and that's in Gunadwaith. So I'm kind of like taking, and this is something where I'm kind of messing around with it, really, because I don't know how much I like being this close to like you know, Tolkien inspiration, but I am taking some names. I'm kind of being careful with what I do, obviously, because, you know, I want to have location names that are inspired by things, but not like, you know, in the same language. I don't want to do anything, and I definitely don't want to do anything in like Sindarin or anything, you know, any sort of Elvish language or anything, because that's not, you know, that would get me in trouble. But I am kind of taking some inspiration from names and seeing what works and what doesn't. Um, and also seeing where he got inspiration from, you know, is kind of a big thing. But I mean, this is kind of just a really, really early, like I spent like maybe like an hour on this of what this section is going to be, right? So it's basically going to be like all of this over here. Um, this is Lamandris, and then Gunadwaith is up here. And this is going to be a lot of like, I guess, more hostile territory as you go further up north towards the mountains. Um, and then if anyone is still here from the beginning when I was showing where the cave exit was, that is going to be, that would be all the way back here somewhere. So somewhere way back there. Um, so you can kind of see how even with everything being separate, there's still like an interconnectivity of all the worlds. All of the backgrounds, like the surrounding mountains and all that, they, even though they're not high detail at the moment, they, or higher detail as I'm going to have them eventually, they all represent what you would see in other world spaces that are neighboring each other, right? So like even like further like up north this way is a whole nother world or region, I'll say. But yeah, I'm not too, what I will say is I'm not really too happy with this one so far. I don't, you know, I'm kind of just thinking of how I want this to be. I don't like having an I don't think the start is going to be over here. The default entrance. Each region or world space is going to have like a default entrance, but really it's not going to matter so much because in the game the way you get to it's going to depend on how you travel to it. So in other words, if you travel from a world space up north, you know, maybe in this direction, you're going to start out over here somewhere. An entrance will be over this way. That makes sense. Um, so everything's kind of logically connected, if that if that implies what I'm trying to say. Um, so even if it's all separate, it's still interconnected. Everything's pieced together in that way. Um, and again, Lamandris would be about right here. So about right in the middle between the Etenfords and Ithilden, which are, if we're facing south, would be here, over here, and then over here. So Ithilden would be this way. Yeah, so even if it's like, you know, my backgrounds aren't perfect, I think it's gotten good enough to the point where if I'm in these worlds and I can, you know, as long as I can see and visualize all the background, I can look at it and tell where things are at relatively um in the continent, which would be this whole mass here. Right? Um, so yeah, we'll go back to we'll go back to the caverns real quick. 1 second. Okay. So as I was saying with the lighting, it's not really our focus right this second. I'm kind of just trying to plan some of it out, and then once I go and do my first, I guess, light build pass that I do in this section, or lighting pass, overall, then we'll make adjustments to that. But right now, I'm kind of just trying to figure out how I want this to be. So we're probably going to end up adjusting this quite a bit, the way we're doing this design. But again, that's one of the, I think, the beauties of game design is kind of just adjusting. I mean, you're kind of going through and visualizing things. If you're doing if you're doing it sort of impromptu like this, then yeah, you're absolutely visualizing things on the fly, and you're kind of trying to figure out. Um, Even if you've done some design planning, you're kind of still trying to figure out what would possibly work better and what, what just doesn't make sense. So I think we could absolutely do like a chasm section here. So let me actually switch to unlit view. I'll look a little bit ugly for a moment. And I'm going to bring up this landscape here. Because I actually want there to be sort of like a ridge up here. The only thing I have to be careful about is that I don't, and I don't think I will, but that I don't paint all the way over here. Right, so we more or less just want kind of a flat surface here that we can work with, and then I'll be able to take that and edit it and stuff. And that's similar to how we did this section here, right? So, which is not even, this isn't even finished, but once it is finished, it's going to be more like a spider's nest layer with a bunch of spider webs in it and stuff. Who knows? Maybe we'll make them like traps, even like blueprint actors where you get stuck in them. I don't know. Could make it interesting. Could do some custom movement and whatnot. It might be. I've never really seen that in a game, probably because it's, or not in a game like this, anyways. Probably because it's super annoying. But I don't know. We can mess around with things like that once we have the opportunity to do so. So yeah, eventually, kind of just leave these rock structures in here like this now. Just move it back a little bit. Yeah, eventually we'll do like a, could actually start doing it now maybe, but it's more just a time thing where I'll spend some time painting a visibility mask over the side of this I guess part of the landscape, right? Um, where the ridge is, and then I'll do like rock detail over it, like static mesh rock detail. But I think the ideas are kind of going to lead up like this. So maybe this section isn't entirely open, but I do want to have like, okay, maybe like this little bit, you know. And then, we've just been using the same rock meshes for all this just because it's easier, but once we're at the detail phase, we'll start using some different assets mixed with this. And I'll actually pull over my other content browser that will allow me to do that a bit easier. So oh, don't do that. The good thing about kind of working with assets like this too is, and even this style, is that you can kind of quickly iterate with existing assets in the scene by just kind of like going over here and saying, oh, you know, that archway looks cool, or that rock archway I did over here looks kind of neat. Let's try to make something similar over here. We can just kind of take those bits and pieces from it and see if we can recreate them in different ways, using the same assets very quickly. So, and that's kind of more or less how I mess around with these. Because, you know, with something like a rock, you know, it doesn't really matter how you place it. It's just, well, it does matter, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there's so many different ways you can place it, and you know, it's interesting to keep messing around with different angles, seeing how, you know, if you're placing one alongside another, how it looks. Actually, you know what? Let me delete that light. Who's still here? Well, I'm definitely here. I'm slowly wanting to. Well, we'll probably get on Clone Hero in about 10 minutes here because we've been running about 2.5 hours. But where's our original light color? So we're kind of just doing more of like a white light. So if I do, I don't know, we can make this a little interesting over here maybe. If anybody's a lighting artist, comes in this stream and looks at my current lighting setup, they're probably gonna go like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Trust me, there's a method to my madness. There is a method to my madness. That's not really what I wanted to do either. Oh, until we get like different things in here like water sources and stuff, we're not really gonna have opportunity to use other light sources or other colors in our palette for our light sources. One of the other things I wanted to add a lot of to this cave would be something like crystals, but I don't know. I don't really want to go overkill with it because it's not. Let's just say we can reserve things like that in different sections and make them more interesting that way, as opposed to just having crystals, you know, as a part of every bit of the cave, you know, like some video game caves are, which is cool, you know, it's neat. And eventually I think we'll do that in some way or another, just not a whole lot of it. You know, we don't want too much of that thing, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Or maybe like glowing mushrooms or something like that even, you know. We are slowly getting something happening here, and it's very strange. But yeah, we're working on it. We're definitely working on it. Yeah, so when you come in here, it's kind of more of like a, yeah, I like that. Okay. I'm gonna come over here and steal this as well. Only reason I'm copying and pasting some of this stuff is because I tweaked some of it to fit this lighting scenario. And so I'm kind of doing some things that way. You know, it'd be cool to put in here like an aqueduct or something. I don't know. I mean, I want the ruins to make some sort of sense, though. That's the thing, you know? It's like, I can't just go putting a bunch of crazy shit. I guess I could. I mean, it does have to represent the elvish culture that used to be here. So, in some way, you know? The cool thing that I get to do about that, though, is I do have more flexibility since, you know, technically, the culture that you'd be, I say that culture as in referring to the peoples, um, would have been ancient, you know, so would have been from a long time ago. So we kind of have that idea of, at this point, since it's something I haven't really refined a whole lot in my lore or story yet, we can absolutely mess around with design concepts and see what works. So we'll go about another 5-10 minutes here maybe, and then we'll do another stream for Clone Hero. I do have to go use the restroom real quick, so I'll go do that, and I'll be right back. All right, and we'll finish this off. Okay, we are back for a moment. So I'll go ahead and finish up a couple things here. We're not really finishing anything this stream, but we're kind of more or less laying down the groundworks, right, for where we want to pick up off uh, from. So yeah, I think like this concept of having like these rock islands is going to be good. I just think we're gonna have to obviously once I can add in detail and actually do rock detail, rock build up um, properly alongside the kind of the structure that I've given myself with these assets that I've placed around. I think we'll be able to come up with something pretty cool. And yeah, as long as it kind of ties into how I'm doing the points of interest, here in this initial design layout that I've had pinned over here for pretty much the whole stream at this point. I kind of had just more or less uh some basic ideas that I wanted to have instead of more or less points of interest here, as I have kind of in these sections. Some of which even over here is not finished, like for example, the cave bear den is not yet a thing. Oh my gosh, what did I do? But yeah, so there's things that we haven't added in yet, even over there. But you know, I'm kind of just using these things as I guess a basis to go off of as I'm doing this. Um, but really, I've left a lot of this up to um, I guess just create a lot of creative decision, or creative decision would be a good, I guess, a good combination of words uh, to build this out. So, um, but I think as I go through, I think as I go through each section, I think what would be good is if I could kind of open up a notepad, maybe even, and come up with some things that I want to have in each area. Kind of like how I'm doing here, but as more for each section. So by each section, I mean like, for example, like this would be a section here. This little area with the bridge, and then there's probably going to be another bridge over here, and then this open area. And then maybe, maybe the next one is going to be like over here, and it'll still be open, right? But you'll still have like designated sections that I'll go through my design process building out. And then you'll go through as a player playing through each of these areas with different things to offer. So yeah, I think it'll be cool. And then some of these areas too, between like these, you know, if I'm going to use these as bases for the rock islands, right? There's a lot of different ways I can come up with traversal techniques here. Um, so, I mean, in terms of what we offer in the gameplay, it's limited currently. There's no like cool gadgets or anything you can use right now, like a grappling hook or anything crazy to get from one place to another. But I think we can come up with some cool things. I don't want to go like all platformer and try to do weird platforming in here, which is not really what this game is. But we can definitely do some things, I think, regardless, and then figure out how we want to do traversal in places where it's more open. We have the opportunity to do that. So, but we'll see. Again, like just here, even like I thought, okay, well, let me raise this section up, but by getting to the end of this, I'm like, oh, maybe we're not going straight across to this. We're going to have another small section here that we might cut through. We might end up here. And then, maybe we want to then build up here. And then maybe, just maybe, if I follow this path, I'm going to want to build up along this side and do something here and then go up here. and then maybe go from here. I don't know. There's a lot of things that we can do. So it's kind of my point, but I'm running off of some loose basis to do that currently, which is allowing me to be a little bit more creative with how I approach this, which is what I want. I don't want to. This is a opportunity for me to do that. It's not a level that needs really strict design policies in place, or not policies, but just rule sets. I guess would be a better thing, or a better term, rather. Rule sets, definitions, whatever you'd want to refer to it as. And that would be like, where we'd have like the story levels would be like the linear story levels would be much more strict in that sense, right? Um, and that's kind of like I have some examples of that too in here even, um, where I started doing that. I didn't really finish, but um, and maybe it wasn't in here. It was in a different planning board, but still. One second here. For something in my document. Yeah, again, I don't even normally show all that, but whenever I get the opportunity to talk about these things that I've written for this project and where I'm wanting to go with it, where I am going with it, I absolutely uh, love to be able to do that. So, and having things like that allows me to, uh, basically go through it and go, hey, yeah, like this is what I'm talking about when I'm mentioning like the Citadel in this instance, right, where it's all underground. I didn't really talk about it, but it is in there. It's called Rundrialis. There's hints of it throughout the level as you go through it. There's like notes you can pick up, and there'll be other more interesting, less boring things, obviously. But you know, um, there's definitely emphasis on it. So I look forward to kind of doing more with that in here as well. Um, I don't know. I want to do more with this, but I'm kind of still thinking, and I'm thinking this might be a good place to stop. Let me just build out a little bit more of the bottom here. So I'm just gonna do this. Yeah. Again, I know we didn't do a whole lot this stream. We never do a lot. We talk a lot. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's what these streams are for. Um, ultimately, is to be able to do that. So, um, and then yeah, hopefully as I do more and more of these, we'll be able to get effectively both more, I guess, efficient, and then also maybe just as talkative. We'll see. I don't know if I can do both, but we'll figure it out. I used to be able to much better, but it's something you gotta keep doing. So we'll uh, we'll definitely be doing more of these. You guys can probably see why it's a little bit easier for me to do this in unlit view, even though I don't necessarily like building assets, or not building assets, but building levels with this in low poly, in a low poly art style, just because it's kind of ugly, but it is easier to see. So you can't really get a good idea for a visual representation of anything, really, but you know. And then maybe down here, you know, we have like, you know, I could have fog down there. I could have water. I could have both. You know, that's the other question is like, what's at the bottom of all this, you know? Originally, I had planned out for there to be an entrance down here, and that might still be the case. We'll see. We have the freedom to do visibility masks back here and just do anything with this eventually. So, um, you know, the cave is your oyster, is what they say, right? And I don't really think that's a thing, but um, it is now. So, I'm still gonna have some of the snow. Probably did a little bit too much there, but that's fine. Can always paint. We can always reduce the amount of snow layers or snow layer intensity that we have. The reason I'm doing very big brush sizes like this because I already have my intensity sort of where I want it relative to those brush sizes, but I'm going to probably clean this up a little bit, like with the ferns and stuff. The only downside of this, like doing the foliage painting now, is it's gonna start to get pretty laggy pretty quick because of our baked lighting. So yeah, like you can kind of see it here. Um, so we're probably gonna have to do, like I said, as I do each section, we'll have to do lighting builds and do lighting passes as we complete each one. Um, Unfortunately, there's just not really a better way that I can see of doing it right now, the way I'm building this out. So that's what we're probably gonna do. I will say I'm definitely liking the way that we're doing this. It's gonna have to kind of be careful once I do kind of go over all my lights in the scene and I figure out um, essentially where I want all of them to be and make sure my light complexity is ideal. Um, then I think it's going to be a lot cooler to look through all this. But I definitely want a lot of natural light coming through here, so especially like over here. So like with sections like this, I might even have like a larger, like that maybe. As long as we get it kind of relative to that area, it's usually pretty okay. You might want it to be a little further down, possibly. A good thing with this cave is we don't really have to worry about exteriors, so we're pretty much just focusing on making a kick-ass interior with our style that we're going with, so that's cool. these triplanar mats are like a lifesaver for working with these kinds of assets, because it's kind of just really neat what you could do with these. Even if you're kind of just using like the same pieces, you can find ways of you know, doing cool rock formations with those. Yeah, so we're gonna have to do we're definitely gonna have to do another lighting pass here, but I'll probably build that later. For now, let's screenshot it back again and close this. Close that. Let me double check my GitHub changes real quick. So currently we have, trying to make sure everything's on there. So we got Caverns, Lamandris, which we edited, foliage types, and Agrak, which is a new Goblin NPC. Okay, cool. So let's yeah, man, let's just call this something for now. I'd like to do a little bit more, but we're kind of running up on time here, so because I spent most of it talking. But you know, that's kind of the whole point. So yeah, let's pick up on this in the next stream and see what we can come up with. I'd like to do maybe like a tomb section. So that might be something we could do. We could probably get some inspiration from like, oh my god, I can't even think. I feel so bad for not remembering this. We can get some inspiration from like Bleak Fall Barrows or something like that. Some Skyrim dungeons maybe for that. Maybe even some Oblivion dungeons would be appropriate. But yeah, okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll just stop here. I kind of want to play here. I don't think it's gonna let me. But I wonder if I spawn in with a dragon and then try to like clip up here somehow. So I have like I have like a let me see. No, we'll play through it. We'll play through it. No, I'm not gonna do all that right now. But I want to. I want to, but all right. But we will. We will eventually. So all right. Let's go ahead and I'll stop the stream and I'm gonna do another stream after this one, which is going to be we'll just do it on Twitch, and we'll play some Clone Hero. All right, peace out. Later.